I am so happy to introduce our next speaker. Who's an incredible person who is by far too long for me to read fully. But Melissa Malcolm King, first and foremost, is a proud family member and friend, and I have been blessed by Melissa's friendship and her gift of chosen family. Melissa Malcolm King is also an advocate for LGBTQ+ rights and is on various planning and leadership boards throughout the continental United States, including having served as a director of the People of Global Majority and regional president for Afro-Asian, LGBTQ+ families and friends, the acting president of Asexuals Utah, and executive secretary of the LGBTQIA+ Love is Love organization. Melissa is an educator, she's an author, and she is a great poet. And I'm happy to introduce Melissa.
I knelt on the floor so long that bruises found a permanent place on my knees, pleading for a God who would correct all my flaws by changing my skin color, gender identity, and sexual orientation. I likewise prayed for an able body and to live a life like others who live in privilege. Despite all my attempts to have my God transform me into a cisgender, white, heterosexual person, my requests were ignored. There were sleepless nights and an absence of time with a desperation to be everything and nothing at all. I cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me? Yet my God responded in silence and indifference, and I responded in rage. This rage fueled within me the power of denial, distrust, and a dysfunctional relationship with myself. I repeatedly succumbed to this destiny, believing I needed to prove my worthiness by denying my innermost feelings. I wore a mask so heavy that my soul was shattered underneath the weight of it, finding myself as a stranger in a foreign land. My demands increased, and my wailing became louder and more desperate. I sought after my God's approval by being the best in my discipleship, by quietly hiding away from my imperfections and burying myself under pain and discontentment. Indeed, my God would see my intention of faithfulness and provide me the cure I so desperately wanted. When that didn't provoke a response, I became a marionette puppet, leading others to pull the strings to show my devotion. I presented myself on the spiritual stage to create the greatest act of my life. But my God did not accept this offering and would not hear my pleas and earnest yearnings to be anything other than myself. Nevertheless, I continued to talk to my God, at times yelling and denying my God's very existence. When there is no response, dysfunctional devotion follows into a form of self-hatred diluted by religious trauma. Just like the relationship with myself, I did not see the worth or power of my God, who appeared to fail the mission when I could not change myself, no matter how hard I tried, no matter how strong my faith, and no matter how much my family wanted what was best for me. In my desperation, my prayers became gut-wrenching and more hostile. The louder I screamed on the inside, the more solid my God got on the outside, and the more alone I felt. For years, my God and I engaged in this one-sided conversation. Despite all my attempts to prove my worthiness to receive such a change, I was denied this perceived blessing and found myself teetering on the cliff of despair, ready and willing to be free of my burdens. I saw no purpose in living if I could not be the person everyone else wanted me to be, and that God did not create. Darkness engulfed me into a well of depression, and numbness became my newfound friend as I tried to escape from reality and was torn into the entanglements of my heart. My blurred past had lent itself to a place with no future. I continued to teeter on the cliff, looking down into the canyon of my soul, desperate to escape and wonder why my God had seemed to leave me desolate and all alone. Looking above the canyon of my soul, I caught a glimpse of a rainbow fluttering in the distance and hands reaching up in the shadows. With my hands shaking, I reach up and grab through the unknown space. I can feel the souls in the darkness that despite themselves being housed with the pains of injustice, reach out in authenticity and love and do not let go. Through their presence and persistence, I found myself stepping further away from the cliff and towards a more wondrous life as I began to see that I was never alone in the first place, and that my God had continued to send me angels to anoint me and carry me during the most challenging parts of my journey. These sacred spirits could see my beauty when all I could feel was ugliness and despair on the inside. They celebrated when all I could do was mourn losing who I thought I should be. At first, I could not accept my place in my rainbow family because I felt I had to deny my true self to love my God. Society, my family, and religious institutions led me to believe that my God would only love me if I cast aside my so-called burdens and became whole again. No matter how hard I tried, I could not pray away my feelings or true identity or change myself to fit into the various modes presented to me from the moment I entered the earth. I had failed my God and would be denied access to a birthright that in reality was already mine in the first place. This inner turmoil kept me on the brink of death on this emotionally unstable cliff, as living was too painful, knowing that another avalanche would come without warning and push me over the edge at any moment. This would not be the first or the last time I would find myself on this cliff, barely grasping on and begging my God to let me go. My God once again appeared to ignore my request, and I found myself standing on unsettled ground, unable to tolerate the earthquakes that were ever present. Nevertheless, I found immeasurable strength and resilience. With life's never-ending tremors and aftershocks, I soon realized and accepted that my rainbow family mourned with me and held me up in the darkness and away from danger. Despite my low self-esteem and many self-doubts, my God has sent this family to minister to my soul. Repeatedly, I found myself on the cliff of despair. Still, each time, I found my rainbow family there, growing in number to welcome me home and plead for me to stay in the glorious refuge. At first, I denied their invitation out of fear of rejection and anger towards the curses my God had given me. Despite my brutal attempts to reject their compassion, my mask of insecurity began to shatter, revealing the most vulnerable parts of myself. As each piece fell, it exposed other types, intersex, abusive neglect, mental illness, generational trauma, and the severe effects of being unsheltered in my childhood. I realized that my God had not given me a burden, a curse, but the greatest gift I could ever receive. Over time, and with the help of mental health professionals, I let go of shame, guilt, and self-loathing when I realized that I was never broken, cursed, or needed a cure to be worthy of love and acceptance by my God. It was then that I realized my God had made no mistake in my creation. I did not owe anyone an explanation for how I was born, who I choose to love, and that not only was I created in God's image, but I had the right, not the privilege, to be the most extraordinary version of myself. My God prepared a table amongst my enemies by which I could welcome and love others, walking along the same thorny, twisted, rugged terrain that I had also found myself entangled in. My God supplied me with living water, by which I had no more desire to thirst after a life that was never meant to be mine in the first place. My God gave me a beacon of hope that I not only carry for myself, but others who also find themselves on the cliff of despair. Today, I do not cross by the wayside or keep walking by those who are suffering. With my God's grace and compassion, I continue to help heal those who have found themselves cast aside and who have fallen among spiritual thieves who declare that they are not enough. I continue to turn over the tables of injustice and speak out for those in marginalized communities. I do not only stand in holy places, I let holy places stand within me. I carried this cross for so long and struggled to understand why it was so heavy and such a burden. I wondered why my cross was colored with rainbows when others were not. I carried this cross built for me and wondered why I was not allowed to put it down, take a rest, or let someone else have it from me. I now know that the cross built for me is a beacon of hope for others. This hope carries me through the storms of life and fills my soul abundantly. I know I have been carried through the fire and the floods and brought to the promised land of authenticity. As a queer, disabled person of color, my life is full of labels and markings. Labels are the markings placed on me by others in the world to explain my existence, but my God calls me chosen. Ultimately, what I choose to listen to and answer matters the most. I hear and respond to not only being a survivor, but a conqueror. Yet I become weary in my well-doing, fearful that I am not doing enough. I often feel that my offering is insufficient, or that I am not worthy of such a wondrous call to action. I constantly struggle to understand why my God would see me as worthy enough to be among the least of these. I marvel that my God would place such a responsibility on my shoulders, knowing that I will feel the lifelong strain of those who mock my every decision and think that my actions somehow threaten the family or the productivity of humanity. However, I remember that it is through unconditional love that I find the power to still be here fighting, determined to let my light shine, and to continue to offer a hand in the darkness toward those kneeling in silent prayer, knees bleeding, and begging for an unnecessary transformation, to find acceptance from those who have turned their backs on them in the name of so-called righteousness. There are those that misuse the purpose and presence of my God, and as a result, use my God to justify acts of hate. My God does not hate or condemn love in any form, despite what religious communities may profess as my God's goals. My God affirms that we in the LGBTQ+ community are beloved, as we are created and need no revision to find acceptance and love. My God does not seek toleration, but acceptance of all people. My God welcomes everyone to come as they are, wherever they are, to believe as they are, with no exceptions, amendments, or exclusionary policies. My God is peace. My God is acceptance. My God is community. My God needs us to share our voices authentically and boldly, proclaiming that we are here, despite the never-ending attempts to silence us. My God is a God of action, by which there is no room for performative shows, but a willingness to do more for humanity, seeing the greatness in each person, not based on what they can produce, but how they can create the change the world so desperately needs now. My God needs each of us to do the work to eradicate the bias and embrace self-love through consistent, deliberate actions, one moment and one person at a time, beginning with ourselves. Through this process, we become more significant than our circumstances, greater than our loss, more potent than our misery, and connected more profoundly to humanity, gathering hope all along the way. Perhaps the message my God is trying to profess is that the most extraordinary remedy to the plagues of injustice begins when we live our most authentic lives and find within ourselves the courage to not only exist, but embrace the precious commodity of time with more opportunities to serve and create a greater community for ourselves and others. It begins when we can say to ourselves without judgment, I love you unconditionally. It starts when we can turn to our neighbor and express through our actions, I love you unconditionally. It begins when we can empower the next generations to get to a place where they too can become the greatest versions of themselves without shame or guilt. While there are those that doubt this level of change could ever occur, I say that all things are possible with my God. Please do not be fooled to believe that my God desires us to have a lack of boundaries or be recipients of abuse as a sign of loving unconditionally. Sometimes the most extraordinary form of love is when we can leave behind a situation or a many circumstance in a way that brings us peace and provides safety. Whichever the case, my God gives us a call to action. Despite being woven into different belief systems and cultures, the call is still the same now, yesterday, and forever. Perhaps my God perhaps is not your God, and your God perhaps is not mine, but having a difference in belief does not make one possibility wrong. For this reason, my God often has countless names and titles worldwide, and more in the hearts of believers. My God's most outstanding title is abundant love. How will you share my God today?